I saw half of a few talks I wanted to see. Alright, so we're recording. So hello everyone, welcome to...
Oh, we are.
Yeah, we are.
Hi.
Welcome to the dawn of the dusk of the final day.
We escaped the stairwell, for those of you
Yes.
paying attention.
Yeah, maybe that stairwell thing will go up on Patreon and you can pay to see something that you were in.
Yeah.
I have food all down my front, but it's the last day, so...
It's good they fed you.
Yeah, I saw something about... So I basically saw 3 talks I made notes of, although I saw more talks than that. I saw the end of Phil Novak-Gottschall's talk. I saw a talk about Idiokaran vermiforms. I saw some Bartic invasion stuff.
You saw all different things than me.
Interesting.
Would you like to open?
Okay, I guess the 2 that I have actual notes of, I can remember because my brain is mush by this point, okay, Idiokaran vermiforms. It was these Chinese Lagerstadt, and they're basically 2 species. And there is a turnover from one type of worm to another. And they sort of claim they're not due to preservational biases, although the stratigraphy is kind of weird and it's actually probably more an onshore-offshore thing. But they were also saying that there is evidence that maybe there is an increase in predation, but because they're soft-bodied, you don't get the predation preserved. And so it was an interesting talk where I don't know what to make of any of their conclusions, basically. But it was interesting to see some Idiokaran stuff. There was a bunch of other Idiokaran things I didn't see because I kind of came here and checked into my flight. So that's that. It's not a ton that I have noted down. So, do you have anything?
I saw Neil Landman's Ammonoids on Methane Seeps.
Cool.
And a kind of a sequence of talks about determining when shelled cephalopods are actually from where you find them or not.
Okay. I saw the last maybe 3 minutes of Neil's talk.
Yeah, so Neil's talk basically came down to, we think they're from the methane seeps. The isotopes make it look like they're from the methane seeps. Other people think that shelled cephalopods float in from everywhere, so it doesn't mean anything. And then he went through and said, we have an egg to juvenile to adult sequence that you can see in the isotopes, saying they're all hanging out in the same place at different levels from benthic to planktic to back to benthic again.
Mm-hmm.
And then we have both sexes when we have sexual dimorphism, and we have radulae, and imagining a critter floating in with its radulae still inside the shell is quite a bit of a stretch compared to just saying that they actually lived there. So that was good, and then it was followed up not too long later by a talk about the origin of the idea that shelled cephalopods float in from everywhere. Was that one species of nautilus has a rather broad range, and they are shells on the beaches of East Africa, and if they were floating in from the Philippines, that would be quite a bit of shelled cephalopod drift. But no, there are living populations near Madagascar, and so shells getting to Southeast Africa is not transoceanic. So that was cool.
That's quite cool.
Kind of a series of agreement of you can actually get something about the ecology and where these things live.
Yeah. Yeah, it's really fascinating where in the modern we have had some incomplete data, but because we tend to assume the modern is really well sampled, that we've made incorrect assumptions about past processes. Because there was did you see any of the Kettlepod posters?
Only a couple. I saw the hydrodynamics one, the 3D printing one, for obvious reasons. And I saw
There was another methane soup, like juvenile wine.
Yeah,
that
and I
was
saw
on.
the Belemnite really good SEM, and I think it was Tim's they did too, but that could be wrong. But imaging Belemnite shell structure.
Yeah, I missed a large part of Phil's talk. I sort of came in at the end where it was looking at functional diversity through time and sort of showing that functional diversity has peaked at points and then dropped with certain mass extinctions, although not others. But there are general trends in functional diversity and that it has increased a bit in the modern. But the sort of main point of the talk at the end was him saying, I have a lot of data, I have a lot of R code, I have a 4-4 teaching load, talk to me and we can collaborate. And please use my data. And so that was...
Begging the data to become science community data.
Yeah, so that was a sort of a nice sort of open end to a talk, you know. So
Did you see Rupnarin's talk?
I missed it.
I need someone to explain the talk to me.
Okay.
So we will skip that then.
Okay.
And then ones that I'm not going to talk about, related lab group type people, and coal balls.
Okay.
Anne Raymond doing concretions that contain peat from the Pennsylvanian to Permian and why they happen, and relating it to mangrove swamp systems now versus mangrove swamp type systems in the past.
Mm-hmm.
And you can see layers of leaves in the sediment in the fossil, and you can get 20 leaves on top of each other, and in the recent you never get that much. It's only like 3 because things eat them, and that was the big difference. So these coal balls, it was the world is different because stuff evolved. So there's termites eating all the wood that live on the mangroves now, and there's herbivorous, or not herbivorous, detritivorous crabs eating the fallen leaves, and they can eat all the fallen leaves. There's some environments in the modern where 100% of the leaf litter that isn't tidally carried out is eaten by crabs. So the post-Eocene world is different because evolution did new things.
Interesting.
And then other talks that I shouldn't talk about because they're people that are lab group people.
You can talk a bit about lab group people. I have one other talk to talk about, which was looking at biotic invasions and the impact of biotic invasions on functional guilds and ecosystem stability. And so functional guilds are just groups of organisms that essentially do the same thing. They have the same food source and tend to have the same predators. And this was looking at species pools, and they've got specimen data from the field and from museums and from the paleobiology database, and they put these things into functional guilds. And they were looking at changes across the Richmondian invasion, which is something we've talked about in the past. We've talked about it at this GSA, just a period in the Ordovician when you started getting widespread invasion from certain species into sort of endemic environments. And the real interesting thing, which is interesting in as much as it's confirmation of what I'd kind of assumed in a bizarre kind of way, was that when you look at before the invasion and after the invasion, guilds, you have slightly fewer guilds, you have much fewer species, but the overall structure of the ecosystem is the same. It's just you have the same things everywhere that are slotted into these guild spaces that are there, and they've pushed other things out, and you haven't made these ecosystems hollow, or you don't have fewer species making up these guilds. Like you start the same number of guilds, and you have fewer species, but the sort of ratios of species and guilds remains the same. And so these ecosystems are structurally intact. However, the thing that's interesting is that after the invasion, communities are less resistant to collapse. and so basically they are more likely to completely fall apart and undergo extirpation events because of environmental perturbations, and they couldn't quite suggest why this was, although they noticed two trends, which was that after species invasions there are fewer detritivores, and also there are proportionally more omnivores after the invasions, and so they thought that maybe what you have is that maybe you have fewer species filling more of these functional guilds to a degree, and because of that it's more easy to destabilize things by knocking out a few species, when before in the past there'd be other species to sort of take up the slack if you lose something. And then the loss of detritivores is interesting. The one thing I could think of is maybe it suggests that these systems are less productive, so there's less nutrients about for detritivores to eat.
I would think the opposite.
Opposite?
I would think the detritivores would help with nutrient cycling. So maybe, and even, you know, some of the detritivores are also things that are going to bring oxidants into the sediment.
Mm-hmm.
So maybe it's making it less.
You got more, it's basically just stagnant.
Yeah, the detritivores, because if you just have like a layer of rotting stuff that's all going anoxic with bacteria goo at the bottom.
That makes sense. Yeah, okay, yeah.
Well, it's interesting. Sounds interesting.
Yeah, I was intrigued because I'm interested in community structure stuff at the moment, and so I was intrigued to see that.
Yeah, and it was a long day.
It was a long day.
And I'd like to have one more comment just to end with that doesn't have much to do with the science, but at the end of the museum session, they were talking about the Smithsonian, and they did say they showed a pickled gorilla. They have pickled primates.
That must be very big.
They are
tubes.
CTing pickled primates in their collection to look at plaques to see if they get heart disease like people. So they are CTing pickled primates now.
That is fascinating.
And that was a good picture to show. It was a pickled gorilla on a slab to a CT machine.
That's a perfect way to end a conference.
Yep. I am the pickled gorilla, and if you could just get me through security that way, I'd do it. 6 a.m. flight. Bye, folks.
Well,
Pay to see us. Get out of the stairwell.
That was a fascinating adventure.
Yep, we did a real life. We did an unintentional LARP.
Yeah, and I like how useless I was, because instead of trying to help, I was just like, I'm going to tweet this.
Well, we had 3 people, so we had one person to stand at the door that you couldn't pass through, that was inside of the door that we were already locked in by, and find out more by going on the Patreon.
Yeah, I just want to point out that many people reacted to the news that we were trapped down there, and not one person offered to help.
We became an analogy for things that fall down into caves.
Yes. Seep deposits and cave traps.
Yep.
Yeah, so this
But we were wily.
Yes.
We were the chiropterans.
Yes. We found a way out, and we didn't go back in. So this has been GSA 2017.
Thanks for sticking through.
Hopefully we'll see you all next year.
Yeah. Wherever. I don't even know where it is. And I'm sure that it was shouted at me.
It's Indianapolis.
Oh yeah, because that's the East Coast.
Yeah. It's close enough I might drive. I think it's going to be about a 6-hour drive, but I might do it. 6 hours isn't too far.
Well, we drive 4 hours to get to the airport because our first flight was cancelled. So 6-hour drive is that plus security.
Yeah. Well, hopefully your trip back is less eventful.
Yeah.
Curtis is already gone, and he suggested to take the K9.
The K9 lane.
Yeah.
So. For some reason, they might be extra careful with people flying from Seattle, Washington, back to the rest of the country. Don't know why.
Is that an actual news thing, or?
No, it's because there's things that are legal here.
Oh,
so that's why
yes.
the canine line is
Yes.
faster, because you don't have to look as much if you walk past the dogs.
That's true. That's very true. I hadn't even considered that.
Hmm.
That also explains a lot of the smells.
I thought that you understood that explained a lot of the smells.
I think I knew, but I wasn't.
You didn't put it together
Yeah.
because we barely left the 3-block radius of the conference center.
Yeah. Yeah.
But our conference ratitude has benefited you.
Hopefully. Your good note taking and going to interesting talks has overall improved our GSA reporting over the years. So
Yeah. If you make it through what's now again a three or four segment GSA.
yeah. Well, it's been something like 50 minutes and an hour and a half, so we should probably wrap this up. So the last one is just the less than 20 minutes that they currently see.
Yep.
So we should be kind to the audience.
Bye, audience.
Have a good one.